This is George Dionne of the Rock is George podcast, and this is a KNAC.com exclusive interview with guitarist RHEA THOMPSON and bassist Bones of the UK heavy metal act Tailgunner. Bones, I'll start with you. Tailgunner just wrapped up the first part of your Midnight Blitz tour, opening for power metal legends HAMMERFALL. This tour, of course, is to promote your upcoming album, Midnight Blitz, which is set for release on February 6th. Before we get to the album, how did the first part of the tour go?
It was amazing, man. I mean, HAMMERFALL were just really, really so cool to tour with. The band, the whole crew, the tour manager, Jörg, as well, you know, who we found out was quite a legendary drummer. He's played for Saxon and Stratovarius and everything. So very, very cool guys to be on tour with. And it was just this traveling caravan of huge metal nerds and like Maiden nerds, you know, all together out on the road. And we had a complete blast. First time in Spain, Italy and Portugal and Switzerland, actually, for us. So it was all new territory. Especially in Spain, the crowds were just ridiculously cool. So a total blast, and hopefully we can do it again sometime.
RHEA, from what I understand, you weren't able to make this part of the tour. You were kind of dealing with some personal things. Obviously, I would imagine Tom gave you reports from the road.
Yeah, he did. Yeah. Yeah, it looked like they were having loads of fun. Yeah.
Now, you had announced prior to the tour starting, Tailgunner had announced prior to the tour starting that RHEA, you'd be rejoining them when you guys made it to England. Is that still the plan?
Yeah, so I'm going to be playing the Planet Rock show that we have tomorrow, and then I'll be playing a few select dates on the FOZZY tour.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Bones, how is the crowd reacting to the new material from Midnight Blitz?
Yeah, really amazing. Obviously, we've got a few singles out, and, you know, see people singing along to them in places that, you know, we've never been to, countries we've never been to, is always a really cool feeling. Some of the reactions were just incredible. You know, we have this single Eulogy and this ending riff, you know, through the last section of the song, and the crowd's singing that at full pelt. You know, seeing a room full of people sing that back to us was always a really cool feeling. So we're very, very pleased with the reaction so far.
Did you learn any tips or tricks from HAMMERFALL? They've been kind of road warriors for decades.
Well, just that, really. I mean, you know, stay out on the road and keep working hard and keep building bit by bit. I mean, what we're doing is not something that's, you know, the new record's not going to go in at number one all of a sudden. We're not going to be, you know, in the pop star territory. So we just build and build and build year by year, release by release. And that's the great thing with touring with HAMMERFALL, is seeing how they've done it. You know, they've been going since the late 90s, and they've got this incredible fan base now because they just don't give up, don't give in, and they keep going and keep soldiering on. And so that was the real takeaway from that.
RHEA, you said you're going to be jumping in on the festival and a couple of the FOZZY dates that are coming up in the UK. Have you ever crossed paths with FOZZY before, or is this going to be the first time?
No, it's going to be the first time for me and the band. We've not played with them before. I've heard of Chris Jericho from his wrestling career, obviously. But no, I hadn't heard that he had his own band.
How about you? Familiar with Chris Jericho's wrestling career?
Not at all. No, I'm not a wrestling fan. When we first got sent these dates through, I must admit, you know, I wouldn't say this to them, but I thought, you know, who the hell are FOZZY? And once we got sent the venues through, we were a lot more inclined to join the tour. I didn't realize quite how successful his band are. So very, very cool. I know our merch seller, or the merch wizard, as we call him, Josh. He's a huge wrestling fan. He's actually a wrestler himself. So he can be the one pestering Chris for tips and tricks, but we'll just go out there and do our job on the music side of things.
So I'll tell you, I saw FOZZY 20 years ago here in Massachusetts. They had just released their second album. They ended up moving them from the big venue to the smaller venue because ticket sales were slow. When I got there, 30 people. That was 20 years ago. Today, they're selling out gigantic venues. It is crazy, the development of FOZZY over 20 years. And it may have something to do with his wrestling career.
I would imagine so.
You guys are Tailgunner is scheduled for festivals throughout the summer. In addition to this touring with FOZZY, in addition to this touring with HAMMERFALL. Bones, is this the largest tour that that Tailgunner has on the books?
We'll see how many more dates we add to it. Obviously, we'll be touring this new record for the next few years. So I think the debut we played, I believe it was 73 shows in 14 countries. This one is already, I think, more than that in terms of how many countries we're playing. There's another huge leg that's yet to be announced that we're really looking forward to getting out there. So I'm sure by the time that all is said and done with this album cycle, it will definitely be the biggest tour we'll have done. So
you probably can't talk about it, but is this leg that you're talking about a US leg?
Yes and no. We can't really say too much just yet, as you know.
So let's get to the album. Midnight Blitz comes out on February 6th through Napalm Records. I had the chance to preview it. Fantastic album. A little bit classic metal, but you keep it modern as well. Tailgunner's last album was Guns for Hire. Bones, when did you start writing Midnight Blitz?
I started to write Midnight Blitz years ago, late 2021, before the band was even formed or at least public. I write in periods of 3 years. So the debut was 2018 to 2021, and then this one 2021 to 2024, which means that right now we're into writing album 3. So I like to stay ahead of schedule.
RHEA, I believe this is your first appearance on a Tailgunner album. How did you get recruited into the band?
I supported them with my old band when they were playing a show on one of their headline tours in Liverpool in the UK. And then I saw that they fired their guitarist really last minute. They had a festival in like 3 days. So I knew Tom from previously supporting them. I messaged him, kind of like, not as a joke, but putting my foot forward, not really thinking anything of it. And then yeah, it just blew up from there, really. I played the festival for them, learnt their set, and then they called me back in for the summer to play a run of shows. And then obviously, yeah, held me long term.
Bones, how does the songwriting work in Tailgunner? I mean, you mentioned that you started writing this album 3 years ago, so I'm assuming you do the blueprint, but does everybody get like a chance to contribute?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think I'd be crazy not to have everyone contribute because there's so many great writers in the band. The debut was, you know, it's not like a solo effort, but I wrote a lot of that by myself out of necessity because I was writing it whilst forming the band. I'd never written songs before. I'd never planned to be a songwriter, but I had to have something to show to people to say, this is what I want to do. And then with this new record, Midnight Blitz, obviously the lineup was together and we've been out on the road with so many amazing bands and it's hard not to be inspired by those. So like I say, definitely more of a collaborative effort this time round. And I think we're all the better for it. It was really, really cool to see, you know, our guitar player, Zach, he didn't write anything on the debut. And this time he has 5 or 6 co-writes. And of course, RHEA's co-written stuff on this record as well. So it's really, really cool for me to see.
KK Downing from KK's Priest, also Judas Priest, obviously, produced Midnight Blitz. How does an emerging band like yourself secure a guy so huge in the heavy metal business, Bones?
KK heard our debut EP Crash Dive that came out late 2022. Someone somewhere got the EP to him. We don't know who. We owe them, I think, 1 million beers at this point. But, you know, he heard it and he loved it and invited us to open for the first KK's pre-show alongside Paul Diano as well, of course, which was a great honor for us. Share stages with, you know, legends of Maiden and Priest, two of the greatest heavy metal bands of all time. And we did another tour with them, a full UK tour in the summer of 2024. And when it came time to go into the studio to make this new record, we knew we wanted to work with a producer and someone that has all of those years of experience is what we needed. And we found ourselves in this very cool and surreal scenario where, you know, we're friends with KK Down, and why don't we just call him and ask him? And, you know, I spent a few days on the phone back and forth with him, and he was up for the project. And, you know, I think it turned out great.
RHEA, were you in the band when they played the shows with KK and Paul Dionne?
Yeah, that was my second show with them. It was after the festival that we played. It was the biggest show I played, and it was when I wasn't like officially in the band. I was just trialing out for the summer. It was the biggest show that the band had played, and it was like definitely the biggest show I'd ever played by like 2,000 people. So it was really cool. But yeah, I was technically at that point just a stand-in, and then after that show, that was when I was a permanent member.
So you strike me as being on the young side. When you played this gig with KK's Priest and Paul Dionne, did you realize how prominent they were in the metal scene at the time?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've loved them. I've been playing for like 10 years, and I grew up on them since I was 10. So like, I definitely knew the effect, like the opportunity it was and how cool it was and all that stuff. Like, yeah, it was cool.
Bones, was there something that KK brought to the recording process that kind of improved upon what the band had done in the past with your last studio album?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, in many different ways. I mean, firstly, just the fact that you're in a studio with KK Downing is always going to improve things. Just for his presence, you know, because prior to that, we only had one another to be accountable to. And although we're pretty brutal with ourselves and in terms of the quality of what we're doing, when you have KK in the room with you, everyone heightens their playing, you know, because you have to. And he really taught us that no detail is too small to be, you know, not considered. So we thought about every tiny little thing on the record. And, you know, that's something that we really, really learned from him, is just pay attention to every single aspect, and sometimes to the point of madness. But, you know, it turned out great.
RHEA, was there something in particular that you learned from KK?
Yeah, kind of what Tom stated already, to be honest, with the production side. He didn't get too hands-on with the solos and the lead guitar stuff, because he didn't, there just wasn't much need for that. But in terms of the stuff that he brought into the recording, no detail is too small. So he'd always say, like, what if we added a dive bomb here, or a special effect here? And that's not something I would have thought to do. And it just brought the track to life. It gave it a lot more character. So I learned from him to scrutinize everything and to suggest things that may not sound like they'd work, but you'd never know. Like, we were recording a solo section, and he just said, how about you add a sweep arpeggio harmony to the sweep arpeggio that's already there? And it's ballsy, and it definitely helped us a lot with the recording process. So that's what I learned, is to just always throw in crazy ideas.
Bones, tell me a little bit about the album's title track, Midnight Blitz. What inspired it?
Midnight Blitz was actually the last song that we wrote for the record, and we knew something was missing. The title actually comes from KK. It was a suggestion from himself. Obviously, the debut album, Guns for Hire, ties into the band name, and we didn't have anything on this new record to tie into the, you know, Tailgunner theme, and we needed something like that. So, you know, all it was he just suggested this song title, Midnight Blitz, and we were on the road in late 2024. I couldn't sleep after a show, and I wrote all of the lyrics before there was any music. And then it went from there, really, and I co-wrote the song with Craig and Zach. I had the ideas musically, brought them into the guys, and we put it together and built it. And Midnight Blitz, you know, is about us as a band. I always like to have songs about the band on every record. I'm a huge fan of Rose Tattoo's Rock and Roll Outlaw. I think it's really important to have that vibe. And, you know, the Midnight Blitz is whatever people want it to be, but it's about us as a band and about the show. And, You know, a big night out is a midnight blitz. You know, going to the bar with your friends is a midnight blitz. It's just about heavy metal and that lifestyle and that attitude.
RHEA, I don't know how much of a hand you had in the latest single, Eulogy, but why don't you tell me a little bit about it?
Well, the process with Eulogy is I didn't write the lyrics, but I can tell you about the guitars in that process.
Perfect.
So with with Eulogy, it's definitely the most technical song that we have. It's my favorite song to play live. It's got some really really cool stuff in there. The solo section is definitely what we pushed ourselves the most on, I would say. When I mentioned earlier with KK in the studio and he was saying, why don't you add the sweeping harmonies in? That's the song Eulogy. At the end, we have a sweep section. And that's kind of where we pushed the barrier quite a lot. We really wanted to pay homage to like a classic power metal single. You know, we wanted to really like write something that paid homage to the roots of the band, like very Halloween inspired. And so that's what Eulogy is about for us. And then as far as the guitars go, it's just for me the best song to play off the album live. It's the most fun and the most interesting as well. Yeah.
Bones, what do you have to say about Eulogy?
Eulogy is a song I'm really proud of. I came into Craig and Zach again with, normally I have some sort of musical idea. With Eulogy, I just had the idea of a vibe. It was the dead of winter. I remember it was freezing cold outside. It was covered in, you know, mist and ice and snow, and it really lent itself to the whole vibe of the song. And we wrote it over a couple of days, and I went home that same day and wrote all of the lyrics. I had a book about Norse mythology, and I was looking through there, and you know, there's a running theme on this album about, you know, facing your own mortality and the finite nature of life, and we needed a song that summarized everything like that for the closing track. And it's like RHEA says, it's the most developed and most challenging song musically. And I think it's really fitting as a closer for the record, where we just throw everything at the wall. And, you know, I look at that song a little bit like our equivalent of like a Hallowed Be Thy Name. So I'm very, very proud of it.
Another great track that you released as a single is Tears in Rain. That was actually the song that wrote me in starting to listen to this. I liked Midnight Blitz, Tears in the Rain. I'm like, wow, this is really good. Why don't you tell me a little bit about it, Bones?
Tears in Rain is inspired totally by Blade Runner. It's one of, I think, the greatest films of all time. And, you know, with Tears in Rain, it's important to us on this record that we weren't just doing something like on the debut where it's pure sort of like new album worship. I think Tears in Rain branches out a little bit. It's still classic heavy metal, but, you know, I'm not ashamed to say that there's a focused aim with this record, and I think it's evident on Tears in Rain and a few other songs where we're gunning for the mainstream of rock and metal as well. And, you know, that's exactly what we were trying to achieve. I know the song's been picked up since by Kerrang Radio, so that's really, really cool for us. And yeah, just Tears in Rain is something a little different, and I think it's important that as a heavy metal band, we're not just trying to appeal to the people that already know Grim Reaper, Demon, Angel Witch, and those bands, but to be a band where, you know, you can enjoy Tears in Rain, and hopefully you'll find some more of that sort of old school, obscure, and true metal along the way.
RHEA, is it tough for the band to decide what to release as singles, or do you just leave it up to the record label?
No, we get a say in which ones we want to be singles. When we write, I mean, we write in the idea of we want this song to be a single, and that definitely helps to decide. It's tricky deciding though, because personally I just love them all, but I think the singles that we have released so far are definitely single worthy and what some of the strongest songs off the album.
RHEA, do you have a fourth single that's going to come out, and is it going to be War in Heaven? Because I think that's a fantastic song.
Am I allowed to say this? Yeah.
That's going to be the single? That's awesome.
That'll be out on Wednesday. with the video.
Oh, this will air after Wednesday. Don't worry.
Yeah, so War in Heaven's out. Go and listen to it. Watch the video.
Go stream it now.
Bones, tell me about that one. I really enjoyed that one. I think that's going to be a strong song for you guys.
That was actually, another suggestion from KK. Shows how important he was as a producer. But he said to us, you can't be this classic heavy metal band without a ballad. And the first thing I thought was, I really don't want to write a ballad. I purposefully didn't write a ballad for the debut. I don't know if I had it in my arsenal as a songwriter. He suggested this title, War in Heaven, and we're actually in the studio, and Zach was just setting up his guitar, playing some random stuff, and he played the intro, and I said to him, what's that? And he's like, I don't know, I'm just messing around. I said, we have to record that right now. And when you capture that lightning in a bottle, you have to really, really capture it, and you can't wait around. And so it was important to us to have a ballad that wasn't rushed, because it's so easy to, I think, write a cheesy ballad, and we had to wait for the right time. And I'm really, really glad. But, Craig, especially our singer, I think his performance on that song and what he brought to the table on that is phenomenal. I think it's his best work. So that was one of those songs where it's always nice where I can sit back a little bit and leave things to other people and just watch them create. And that's what Craig and Zach both did. And, I had a hand in the arrangement and a few of the lyrics, but it was great to sort of sit back and watch that one come together.
How did Tailgunner end up signing with Napalm Records, Bones?
We had another label previously, where, we made the debut album for absolutely no money at all. And it did well. And then we went back into them and said, okay, for album 2, we've proven our point. Give us a load of money. And they said, well, you've already made one album for no money and it did good, so you can do it again. And we went, well, no, screw that. We're out of here. So, Napalm was the label we always wanted to be with. And, I think the important thing is that they have developed the careers of so many new bands, and you've seen bands go from, club bands to arena bands, and that's a career trajectory that we want to follow. And it was important to us to be with a label that don't just, manage the catalogue of legacy bands that have made their names elsewhere in the 80s, but have, a history of making bands big, new bands. And, like I say, that's exactly where we want to be.
And Napalm does a great job of kind of with physical media, not just digital media. The album cover that you have, the formats that are available, the CDs, the vinyl. RHEA, are you big into the vinyl thing? I know it's probably kind of new for you guys. It's an old format for me.
Yeah, are you asking me do I collect vinyls? Am I big into
Well, yeah. Do you collect vinyl, and are you a fan of what Napalm has done with your album on vinyl?
I absolutely love what they've done with our album on vinyl. Yeah, I don't collect vinyl, but the one vinyl I will be owning is this album, if that helps. I think it's really cool, and we've even got little tapes as well. I think it's really retro, and it really suits the vibe, and it's cool.
I'm kind of amazed people still have tape players to play tapes.
Yeah, I think our fans do.
You guys have some great vinyl. I guess you got red, you got black with a white splatter that's sold out, and I think you got pink. Are there any other vinyl colors out there?
All colors of the rainbow, I think. There's a couple of splatter, red, blue, and the laser pink was my choice. I was a little bit, worried when I chose it, but I wanted to do something really leery and bold, and it sold out. So thank God I was justified in that decision. And they look great. They just turned up here yesterday, and it's so cool.
Awesome. Bones, there was quite a bit of shuffling in the lineup of Tailgunner over the years. Do you think you finally found the right group of people? And of course, this question puts you on the spot because RHEA's sitting right here.
Huh. Yeah, shit, that changes my answer. No, I'm joking, of course.
I'll leave the call, it's all right.
Yeah. No, we're definitely in a great place as a band. This lineup feels now like we have the classic lineup together. I mean, the thing is, you know, people say that, oh, we've been through a few changes and whatever, but we've had less lineup changes than AC/DC, Iron Maiden, or Guns N' Roses had before their debut album was even released. It's just a natural progression. And these days, everything's out there on social media. So people know about a band from the day that they do their first rehearsal. And it takes a while, you know, and you think you have the right lineup, and then you start to tour heavily, and not everyone's built for touring. Not everyone can handle it. So these things happen, and I think we're in an amazing place now with this lineup, and, you know, long may it continue.
RHEA, in your downtime from Tailgunner, do you work with any other bands?
No, not live. I do session work online, so I'm on a few singles and albums from people, and I do gigs, just function gigs really. But I'm not like a touring guitarist for anybody else as a session player, no.
Bones, do you do any session work or work with any other bands outside of Tailgunner?
No, I used to, but I actually can't now contractually.
Fair enough. So before I let you go, Bones, the band's name, Tailgunner, is it from inspired by the Iron Maiden song?
Yeah, of course. I mean, look, when we were putting the band together and we needed a name, I spent hours every morning reading a dictionary and listening to records. And I wrote down a list of every cool band name I could think of. We had like 100. And to be honest, 90 of them sucked and the other 10 were already taken. And so I did that cheesy thing of looking through the back of records that I had. And Tailgunner just jumped out. And, you know, I said to a few people, and they said, yeah, Tailgunner sounds cool. And I'm really, really glad that that's our name. I think it suits us perfectly. You know, and the old Iron Maiden reference is never a bad thing.
I'm a little surprised the name wasn't taken. I think you got lucky there.
Yeah, maybe so, but you need a bit of luck sometimes.
Well, luck seems to be going your way. You guys are currently out on the Midnight Blitz tour. The new album, Midnight Blitz, comes out on February 6th. Fantastic record, released by Napalm. I want to thank you both for telling me more about it today, and I wish you the best of luck going forward.
Thank you very much, man.
Thank you.